Welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast, the resource for transitional and experienced genealogists who want to create a successful business. I'm your host, Miriam Pierre-Louis. Here you'll learn from professionals all around the world who work in the field of genealogy. Are you ready to get started? Then let's get going. Welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast. Today we head over to Ireland to get to know genealogist Elaine Hannon. Elaine, welcome to the Genealogy Professional Podcast.
Hi, Marion. Thank you for having me.
Elaine, let's get started by having you tell us about yourself and give us an overview of your genealogy business.
Well, my name obviously is Elaine Hannon, and I named my business after my name, Elaine Hannon Genealogy. Basically, I have two sons. I'm married. I have a little boy, 7, and a 24-year-old. And I live in County Meath. I was born in Dublin, and a couple of years ago decided to move out to the country. But I'm in a great location for running my genealogy business because I'm only 45 minutes on the train to Dublin, where everything I need research-wise is there for me. And I also get to go to do some of my research work on the train. So that's good.
Elaine, most people come to genealogy from another profession. What were you doing before you became a genealogy professional?
I started off working for TD. A TD is a politician. And basically, I was his secretarial assistant to the TD, and he ran a constituency office. So a constituency it's a catchment area that they have, and like that, you could be, for example, the minister or the TD at the time, he would have been part of an area called Clondalkin and Tala, which was quite a big part in Dublin, quite a big catchment area. And each TD would have their own area. It could be like southwest Dublin, it could be the east of Dublin or the west of Dublin. So the TD that I worked for was southwest of Dublin. And it was quite a big area, and I was his only assistant, his only staff member that worked with him at the time, running the constituency office. I learned fantastic skills that I never realised would come into such great use in what I'm doing now. I loved the job. It was, dealing with the public every day, face-to-face or on the phone. I was dealing with government bodies on the phone, and it was fantastic, and every day you never knew when you picked up the phone, what you're going to be listening to or who you're going to be meeting. And I loved helping people, always have, and I still do today. That's how I started off.
Before the interview, you also told me there was something else that you had done in a previous life. Do you want to mention that here?
Oh, a singer.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I always loved singing as a child and growing up, and I don't know what happened. I think it's a bit like my career now. I just found my voice and got involved in a band for a few years. So I was a singer, lead singer in a band with a couple of guys, and a bit like a rock band. And we did that for a few years. I was only about 19 till I was about 24. And we used to gig all over. We used to play gigs all over Dublin. And I had music played on the radio as well in one of our local stations. Oh, I also did live gigs as well. And we did a gig for Nelson Mandela when he was over in Ireland, which was great fun. So yes, I had a good time doing that. But I think genealogy has taken over that from me. I think my passion now is genealogy. That was my passion when I was younger.
Well, I think it's interesting because many genealogists come from a different background.
Yeah.
And even though these things that you did seem very, very different from what you're doing today, both the singing and the working for the politician gave you skills that are directly beneficial to what you're doing now. And so it's kind of neat because being able to stand in front of an audience, that's a real challenge for a lot of people. And being diplomatic and interacting with the public in a very polite way and negotiating situations, those are all really strong skills. to bring to a genealogy career where you're dealing with a sensitive topic of people's families and the preconceived notions that they've had about their families for many, many years. And we'll get into this later, but I know that we're going to talk about reconnecting families and adoption. And in that, you need even more sensitivity. So I think that your background has really led you perfectly to where you are now.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's why when I, had that sort of wake-up moment and I went, God, this is, it just sort of was a natural progression. And at the time, I knew when I was working for TD, fortunately, they had, there was an election and he won in the election and became Junior Minister of Sport, Tourism, Recreation. And I went in with him then and I worked in Kildare Street in the government building there, and I became his personal secretary. So that was wonderful. But like that as well, I mean, the funny thing about it, across the road from where I was working was the National Library of Ireland, not realising that I would be going in there working for myself, which was wonderful. But in a sense, it was like a natural progression for me. And as I was saying, when my boss retired, that was the reason why I left. He retired as minister. I didn't know what was I going to do. Where was I going to bring these skills? Because anyone that I'd known who worked in that sort of field, they felt like I'd been social worker or solicitor, or there was so many things you could do. And so for a while I put it in the back burner, and I just went and got a job in the health service executive in administration. But anyway, it led me to where I am now, eventually.
Well, let's talk about how you discovered genealogy and how you made that transition to decide that you would want a career in genealogy.
First of all, I was born with, literally, I feel like I was born with the genealogy gene in me, I think, because we were trying to find a close family member, my grandfather. And so I was brought up with that quest, and it was only as I got,
Elaine, tell me, why didn't you know your grandfather?
My grandmother and my grandfather, it was the war. It was during World War I, Belfast, and that was where my grandmother and my grandfather were living. And this was during the beginning of the war. And unfortunately, when he was sent back to America, that was it. They lost contact.
Oh, so he was American.
He was American, yeah.
Oh, okay. So he was an American soldier stationed in Belfast during the war?
Well, he was a lieutenant. Well, actually, he was an engineer. He was on contract.
Oh,
and he was an engineer, yeah. And he was sent over to America. Young guy, beautiful looking guy. And I can understand why my grandmother fell in love with him. But they fell madly in love. But unfortunately, it was the war. It was the times that separated them. And he went back and, like so many stories, I mean, I've heard a story very similar in England, same thing. I'm sure you have as well, where the same sort of thing where when the American soldiers were stationed in England, that, they would have met girls, married girls, so forth. But when they had to return, nobody said, oh, you're going to be returned in a month's time back to America. They were given no notice. They couldn't tell anyone. And, so it all happened very fast. And so when the guys went back home, back to America, they couldn't, nobody was going to give them money to bring the wives or the girlfriends or the babies back. And, it was a very difficult time. So people, so you can understand what was going on then in Belfast. And I mean, I didn't know at the time, none of us really knew the story until my grandmother decided to talk about it. Unfortunately, she left it quite late. But my mother did have his details, his address and so forth, but it was like to us it was a very far away. We didn't know, it's very hard. I can understand it even now. It's very hard to do research when you're not in the same country, and it's like anyone who comes to me for me to do research for them. It's I can find it easy, but names of counties and towns and everything I know them, I understand them, but for someone who's not living here, not living in Ireland, it's very difficult, so I can understand how difficult it was for my family at the time trying to make contact.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So this is very exciting. You have, you started out with a family mystery, and half of your ancestry is American.
Pardon?
No, not half of yours. Half of your mother's ancestry. So a quarter of your ancestry is American. Wow.
Exactly. My grandfather. Yeah, he's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, and thank God, thankfully. And that is how, you see, with that passion then, that developed, or that quest, family quest. And my grandaunts, and they all tried to do it the old-fashioned way, writing letters. I mean, back then you didn't have the internet, say even the 50s, 60s, 40s, 50s, 60s. It was all writing letters, the slow post. And it was very hard for them. So, as time went on, they tried to do things, but unfortunately they were doing it the wrong way. So when I decided to take a career break from work, and I was to my little boy, who is now 7, and I had time on my hands, and so I said, right, I'm going to start looking into this more and see if I can find anything. And I just could not stop looking for him then, for my grandfather. And I was at it every day, every night, on Ancestry.com, anything, looking up everywhere and anywhere. So when I came home, my husband said to me, and I think like a lot of partners, you need a good partner, some good support. And my husband said, Elaine, he said, would you not think about doing a genealogy course or training or something? And I said, do you think so? And he goes, yeah. And I said, God, that sounds a good idea. And he said, number one, it'll help you find your grandfather, and number two, you seem to love it. And I said, okay. And so we did a bit of looking into formal training, and I found this course that I did, and that was the start of it. There was no turning back then.
Tell us a little bit about the course. Where was it being offered? How long did it take? That kind of thing.
Well, it was in the Independent College in Dublin City, Nassau Street, and Dawson Street, and it was basically a diploma course on genealogy and family history research. It was run absolutely fantastic course. I mean, really, really, really good. It was run in conjunction with the Association of Professional Genealogists of Ireland. Great tutors, fantastic tutors. So I started that in 2011, the spring of 2011, and it was an intensive course, three months, but it was very intensive. One day a week we'd meet up, but every day that we were at home, we were a bit like writers, journalists. We used to, or an author writing a book. We had to lock ourselves in basically, and we had to do assignments. So we were, researching on our own family trees. And then we'd go out and we'd use anything that we learned each week, we would practice on. So, for example, if we were learning about the National Library, the National Archives, the National Library, we'd go and visit them and try our research on our family through their archives. So it was fantastic. But we also had, we used to be brought to on tours of like the National Library, National Archives. And it was fantastic because you really got a sense of these places and you weren't nervous of them, in a sense, and you were familiar with them. So that ran for 3 months, and I was very lucky. I successfully obtained a diploma in family history. And I absolutely adored the course, absolutely. It just felt so right.
How many people taking that course went into the course with the intention of becoming a genealogy professional?
At the time, the first day we were there, they asked that question. Well, they basically asked, why were you here? Why, and funny enough, I think there was about 20 of us in the class, and I'd say 18 of the people were there as a hobby. It was something they wanted to learn more to do their own family tree. 2 of us were the only ones that put up our hand, myself and another gentleman, and said that we'd like to, hopefully become genealogists. By the end of it, we still were 2 of us. But I'd say only about a year ago now, there's 3 other people now who are actually working as genealogists as well from the same class.
So how did you transition from finishing up that course, getting your diploma, and then actually opening a genealogy business? Did you have to do anything specific, like fill out paperwork or get a business bank account? What was the first step or maybe it was make a website. What was the first step that you did to go in the direction of actually opening a business and starting with clients?
Well, the first thing I did when I finished up was to practice. I mean, which was fantastic. We had great tutors, and they were literally like mentors as well, and they were saying, okay, go out there and practice. And then when you feel ready, you're ready to start getting your business together. And I did that, and I practiced. So I felt confident at that stage that I'm ready and this is what I want to do. And then the hardest part was actually setting up the web. You had to research. You had to look. We had to, for example, even coming up with a name. I know it's simple now. For me, I have the name. It was just my own name. But at the time, we were thinking of all these different names. Then you had to design your page and what information you wanted to have in on your page, and even PayPal. There's so much in that end of things to get done before you can actually start getting the business going. Then I looked into about getting an accountant, which was delighted I did, because he gave me great advice in what kind of expenses I could claim for and so forth. Then the next step then was, so, you had your web page and your accountant and then the bank. I just went to my local bank that I've been using since I was a child, my family bank, and they were very, very helpful and great advice. And at the time when I went to them, I thought, I'm wasting their time. I'm only a small business. I'm not looking for a loan, but they were able to help me, and they set up a business account for me, and they told me, advised me what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing. And they really, in a sense as well, they made you realise as well that, not to advise you, they tried to advise you on not spending too much and trying to, manage how to manage your finances and so forth. They were very, very useful, very helpful.
It takes a great diversity of skills to run your own business because you're wearing many different hats. You don't just get to focus on genealogy. You have to do the accounting and the marketing and promotions and all these, and the research and everything. What skills were you lacking when you started your business, and how did you overcome that?
Say definitely. I mean, I never ran a business before in my life. So, but I think the good thing was to take one step at a time, and that's what I did. I didn't rush into it. I was very, very lucky because I had great support from my husband, and financially, because I wasn't bringing any money in then at that stage. It was a slow move. There wasn't going to be, I knew myself, it wasn't going to be quick. It wasn't going to happen overnight. But I enjoyed it all, and I took time. In a sense, you had to do your research again, and this time it was your business, researching into your business, how to set it up and how to run it properly. And I think the first year was all about that. The first year was really trying to get your business, get your business out there. And I mean, when I got my web page up, the first day, it was like having a mobile phone and a new mobile phone, you're waiting for someone to ring you. And sure, no one's going to ring you. They don't know your number. And it was like that feeling with my web page. What am I going to do? How am I going to get that out there now? So I did a social media course, and that really helped me. That was a great way. It was a great way of helping me get my business out to the world, as they say.
Give me an example of what the social media course told you that convinced you that social media was important for the success of a business.
Well, for me, the funny thing was, when I was at the course, I was obviously the only genealogist, but a lot of them were their own business, completely different businesses from what I was doing. They were could have been, running a little restaurant or, a little clothes shop or something. So they were trying to promote their shop or whatever. So for me, I was very lucky. The lady that was, demonstrating or running the course, she advised me what you need to do is on your Facebook for your business webpage is to link in, connect with things that are related to genealogy. And slowly but surely, I had to keep building that up. It took a long time, I think for, about 6 months working on my webpage, and also as well to get it out there properly, And now I feel, thankfully, it has got there. But I think any genealogist I know who know that Facebook is, in this time, we need to be up in modern times, going with modern times. And that they would say the same, that, Facebook is very important, social media, and that they do find it very hard at the beginning how to get their page up and out there, Like that, the lady who was doing the course was fantastic, and she really gave me great advice on how to promote my page. And so for each person there got what they wanted, individually, what they needed for their page. So I'd recommend anybody to do these courses. I mean, I only did a day's course, and it was enough for me to get my own Facebook page up and running.
In this first year, it's so hard for all of us to start from nothing and to build a business, to let people know that we exist, that we're providing services, that we're available for hire, for research. What do you think was the one thing that helped you the most in terms of going from 0 to 100 quickly, and letting people know that you're there and you're available to do research for them?
Well, the first year was slow. The second year, things just took off. I find that you really have to put yourself out there. You really have to find ways of getting yourself out there and pushing yourself if you're not that, way inclined. Because I know people who are genealogists and who are only starting out, and they're scared to, and things are taking a lot slower for them. But I think you really have to look out there and say, okay, what's out there? Where could I advertise myself? How could I get free advertising? Because in a sense, you do need free advertising, because a lot of your money would be gone in advertisement. And there is ways and means of getting yourself out there without having to incur a lot of cost. I find that I've gained a lot of clients now, and I think it's your name gets out there. But also as well, as soon as I realised, I'm getting good at this now, I'm in the right job and I'm feeling confident. And so I decided to get my name out there more as a much more professional person, to let people know I am a professional genealogist. And,
Elaine,
I did that. Sorry.
How did your first client find you?
My first client, it would have been through the Facebook. Through my website. Yeah.
Okay, so your first client found you through your website. That's pretty good.
Yeah, but also as well, I know, it was funny at the time that I remember actually, when you're trying to start getting yourself out there, you as you say, I believe in starting small and working big, And I remember there was a little newspaper used to give out free in my local supermarket. And so I rang them up and I said, how much would it cost? And it was very small money now, it wasn't very much. And so I said, right, and I put my ad in it. And I did get a job out of it, but didn't get a lot. I wouldn't have got a lot of jobs. But I did try different ways. I said, okay, we'll go on and we'll try something a bit bigger. And I advertised with Irish Root magazine. And that was great. And I started getting a lot more clients through that. It was slow, but eventually now I'm doing very well and running a very, very successful business now. But it was a slow start.
When you were advertising in Irish Roots, where's their magazine sent to around the world? Did you go to them specifically because you knew that people of Irish descent would be reading this magazine? Did you know that people outside of Ireland would be reading it?
I did. Yeah, absolutely. Fortunately, I think for Irish Roots, they're the only Irish genealogy magazine. And so I knew that this was a great way of getting my name out there, and their clients are all over the world. And also they run a Facebook, can buy the magazine online, or I think as well you can look on it online. But I was very fortunate that the editor got in touch with me and asked me, would I like to do a genealogy slot on their Facebook page? And that was fantastic, because I sort of did that on my own Facebook page, because I always like helping people, and giving advice or guidance. And so I used to do that on my own, and I still do on my own Facebook page. So I think it was seen, and obviously was seen, and fortunately, the editor got in touch with me and asked me to do a slot on their Facebook page. And it was great. I did that for nearly a year. Every time before the magazine came out, I would have a slot for, I think it was 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 3 weeks. And every Friday, we'd have the Genealogy Friday, and I would be there to advise and answer any questions on Irish family history research. So that was great. It was a great experience. And also it was a great way of getting my business out there too.
So that was an actual time frame where you were on call for an hour and people knew that they could come and ask you questions and you would answer them live? Did you get all the questions ahead of time and then you would just write the answers? Yeah?
Yeah. Well, what would happen is that Irish Roots on the Facebook would advertise that on Friday, Elaine Hannon Genealogist is going to be here and will answer any of your questions. So people would put up questions from, say, Monday right up to Friday. And so I would prepare in advance then for the questions, and I would give, say, an hour, 2 hours of my time then to answering the question, answering the queries on the Friday for them. And that was great. I really enjoyed it. And it was, again, as I was saying, it gave me great exposure. It was a great experience, and it brought people to my Facebook page as well. It was an all-win, situation. But I got free advertisement for doing that as well on their magazine in payment. So it was great. It was really, really great.
So, Elaine, you seem very attuned to Facebook because you've got a page started, which is great. Many genealogists don't even have Facebook pages. And you had this great exposure on the Irish Roots magazine, where you had ability to interact with a lot of a wide audience. Yes. Have you ever explored further on Facebook, perhaps searching for Irish genealogy groups that you might be able to get involved with, see who's participating in those groups?
I haven't, but it is something I'll definitely think about doing.
Yeah, I mean, social media, it's one of those things where you have to weigh it back and forth. So social media can be a huge time sink. Yeah. And at the same time, it can be an opportunity. So we have to really think hard and focus when we consider doing social media, because in a way, you have to have a business plan for social media just like you do for your business, because you have to say, this is my goal, and this is how I'm going to achieve my goal, and this is the time I'm going to allot to do it. And you have to be very careful that you don't just waste time doing it. But it might be, I noticed that when I was searching while you were mentioning the Irish Roots magazine, and there's a group called Irish Roots Hunters, and it's a group.
Right.
It's a group, and there's over 3,000 people in there. So it might be worth, anyone who is doing Irish genealogy might just want to at least go and find out what it is, so it's on your radar. You don't have to make it a goal, of participating, but as an Irish genealogist, maybe you want to know that it exists and what it's all about, and keep it in the back of your mind.
Absolutely, yes, definitely.
Elaine, do you do any other services besides client research? Do you do speaking or writing, anything like that?
I haven't at the moment, but it has something I have been looking into doing. I was looking into running courses for beginners. But at the moment, I'm quite busy now with my present clients. But it is something that I have there, that's something I will probably at some stage do. Also, I'd love to write a book. I really would like to write a book. I know my mom keeps at me as well. And just to write about my own family experience, because I think it'd be good, because it would give people, just to let them know how we overcame this quest, as they say, how we got to the end of it and what happened and how we went about it. And it was definitely a journey. But I can just say that my mom is very, very happy now with her family in America, and we're all very happy now. And but I'd love to share that journey in a book. That is something it'll be another few years before I do it, but it is something that it's on my to-do list.
I think that would make a great book.
Yeah.
So you're saying you did actually track down your grandfather's family?
I did, and unfortunately, my poor grandfather had passed away by the time we got in touch. Maybe it was meant to be, but we are in touch with my granduncle, and a lovely, lovely man, and it was wonderful. He's a wonderful man, and he's in his 80s and 6'4", still as tall as ever, and but he was very, very close with his brother. So we've got to know him through my great granduncle, and my mum is just so delighted. It's like a weight has been lifted off her shoulders, and I think it was a sense of relief for us all, because I think in a way, even when we did reunite, when we actually made that connection, it was like something just lifted off our shoulders. A weight was lifted. It was a wonderful release. But it's lovely. I mean, I think as well, and I think that's where I understand, I have a really, a very strong sense of how important it is to trace ancestors and trace family from my own experience and from my own mother's. And I know from doing research now, I've done research for many, many clients, and all types of research. And everyone, I could say, they're doing it to get to know their family, and you probably have come across, I'm sure you come across this as well. It's that even though it could be their great-great-great-grandfather, it's getting to know them. It's, it's your heritage. It's who you are. It's a part of you. And it's so important. Even as a child, I knew that part of me, that American, that side of my, my DNA, my heritage was very important for me to know. And so I do have an understanding, a very in-depth understanding of what it's like. And that's why with the book, it's something that I'd love to share that will hopefully help other people who are possibly in the same sort of situation.
I think that making that connection with your family, with your heritage, is extremely powerful. I mean, I know my own experience was a different situation, but definitely just as powerful an experience to actually feel like you're a part of this group of people. So that's a pretty neat thing. Elaine, what was the most fun project that you've ever worked on that you can share with us?
Well, there was a few of them. I mean, I enjoy every research anyway that I do, every family tree, every family research, because everyone is different and every client, their family history is different. There was one particular one which was, I was just thinking about it there, and this gentleman came to me and he said, Elaine, could you find my granduncle? I want to find out where he's buried. Now, I don't mind, I don't mind finding, I love a challenge. And I said, okay. So I started off. Now, I knew that he was living in England. Well, he was at the time. He'd passed away, obviously. But anyway, we started the research off with knowing, I knew he was married. They never had children. And the funny thing was, as I started research, more and more was coming out. But it wasn't information that the client had asked. But it was absolutely, the client was so happy with this new information that was found along the way that he never knew about his granduncle and was amazed. Now, it was only a small little man, and it ended up they never realised that he was in the army. They never knew that, and that he also had gone to America and lived there for a few years, and they never knew that. They thought this little man had lived with his wife, who they owned a little shop in England, but didn't realise that this little man was having a great time, and he was going off with his nephew. I'd found them on ship manifests, on passenger lists. It gave great information on the passenger lists, and the reason, they have the reason, why are you, who are you going to and how long are you going to stay? And he said permanently. But the funny thing, he was back in England another few years later. But I wondered, did his wife know this, that he was writing there permanently, Then when I passed the information to the client, he couldn't believe it. It was like he got to know his uncle. We did find the uncle. We didn't find his grave. We're still looking for it. I don't think the uncle wanted us to find his grave, but he wanted us to find out more about him, I think,
One of the things that you focus on in your business is reconnecting families. And this is an example, even though the gentleman was passed, he was still reconnected and that connection was reestablished. But you also work with adoption cases. Can you give us an example of one of the cases you were involved with that had to do with somebody who was given up for adoption?
I had a gentleman who, not too long ago, who was in touch with me, and he was adopted in Scotland. Now, he was very fortunate that the information that was given to him by the adoption agency in Scotland was fantastic. And it recorded his mother's name and the address, and it was just fantastic information. But he didn't realise that himself, how this was enough for him, for someone to find his mother. So anyway, the Scottish agency or the adoption agency recommended that they get in touch with an Irish researcher. So he got in touch with me and he gave me the details. And the minute I looked at the details, I went, that shouldn't be a problem, and I had a quick look around, and it ended up the family only lived about half an hour, where his family would have lived half an hour drive away from where I live. So anyway, it just seemed to happen all very quickly then. I was able to find his mother very, very quickly. And he didn't realise that, God love him, he was looking for a couple of years and didn't, and it was very important to him because at this stage he was now happily married. He was only a young man and he had 3 little kids. And he just felt like it was so strong that now the feeling that he wanted to know his mother, he wanted to meet his mother. And if that could not happen, he wanted to be able to come to Ireland and get a sense of his family and ancestors and so forth. Now, he was now living in Australia. It was very lucky. Everything just seemed to work out very well. And I did warn him. I did pre-warn him, should I say. And it was a terrible thing, I have to say, but you have to pre-warn people, unfortunately. And I said to him that, you will have to maybe possibly expect the worst. It may not all turn out the way you want it to. And he said, I know. He said, I'm prepared for that. And I said, it's just in case. But fortunately, I traced his mother. And she was 80 years of age now. And I met up with herself first. And we sat down and we spoke. And she was so happy. She was over the moon to think that her son was alive, and even happier to think that he wants to reconnect with her. So I put the two of them together, and they've been so happy. It's fantastic. And thank God it was a happy ever after. And they're meeting, the gentleman is coming over in August, over to Ireland to meet his mother. And they've asked me to be there as well. So it's such an honour and such a privilege for me to do that. It was just made everything so worthwhile.
Well, that's a great story, and lucky for both of them that it was something they both wanted, because I understand that not all stories like that end up quite so happy. So very lucky for them. Well, Elaine, we are going to change the pace now, pick up the tempo as we enter the lightning round. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay, here we go. What was the one thing you were most afraid of in starting your business?
The business side is actually just starting a business, getting it up and running. I think that's it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, up and run, trying to get it up and running.
What's the best advice you've ever received from someone else?
It's not to give up and try again. And that's it. Once you start, that's the way I am. Once you start it, keep at it, and I'd recommend anyone not to give up, that things might take, it's not going to happen overnight. And, you do have to work at it. And it'll all turn out right in the end, as they say in Ireland.
What is one specific action listeners can take in the next 24 hours to help them transition into a genealogy career?
I know from my own experience was doing a formal training. Definitely, it really will get you on the right track, and you'll feel confident in what you're doing in your research, and it definitely make a difference to your developing yourself as a genealogist.
Do you have a productivity tool or an app that you love that you can share with the audience?
Yeah, I use Family Tree Maker. I find it very good for basically just simple things like, if I'm dealing with a client and there's a lot of people in the family tree and I'm researching, and it just makes things nice, neat and tidy. And I put it onto a family tree, and I'm able to see who everything is, and I can print off, relationship reports, and it just keeps everything simple for me when I'm doing a research. Yeah, I definitely recommend that.
What is your preferred social media channel?
Facebook, definitely Facebook, yes.
Okay. If you can recommend one book for our listeners, what would it be?
It would be Tracing Your Irish Ancestors by John Grenham. It's an absolutely fantastic book. Another genealogist who was years and years and years doing genealogy, she said her exact words were, it's your Bible in Ireland. So I'd recommend it, definitely.
I highly recommend it as well. I have a copy of that book. It's amazing. Now we're going to do tips from the pros, with you being the pro. Yeah. And I think the topic we should choose for this is reconnecting families. So if a genealogist was just starting out and they decided that they wanted to offer this as one of their services, but they don't have a lot of experience, what tips would you give them to help them get started and to do this work successfully?
There's tools or repositories that you can use in the sense of, like, for us in Ireland now, the National Library was brilliant as well. It's got what's it called now? It's the voters registration, the electors register. These are things that are really useful when you're trying to track people or trace people. Also as well was the newspaper archives. If you get a sense of, familiarising yourself with these in your research, they're valuable. Also, land and property records. You can trace people going back right up to now and going back from, in Ireland, I know we could go from 1827 in land records, land and property records, right up to modern to now. And again, it's another fantastic way of tracing people. But sometimes it's just really practicing and connecting. And I do for a lot of my clients. Not only am I looking for their, I'm looking for their great-great-great-grandparents and family, but I also will offer a service if they'd like to find their living relatives, and reconnect with their relatives. But it's all practice.
Give our audience one parting piece of advice and then tell us how we can get in contact with you.
I think if you're a genealogist, it's something that is a passion in you. And I think that once that passion is there, anything is possible. And just to believe in yourself and to, as another very well-known genealogist in Ireland said to me, Elaine, start small and work your way big. That's the way it is. You start off small and you work your way up.
And what's the address of your website?
It's Elaine, ehgenealogy.com, Elaine Hannon Genealogy. And I'm also on Facebook.
Elaine Hannon, thank you so much for coming on the Genealogy Professional Podcast.
Thank you very much, Marion. I've enjoyed our talk.
I love to hear from genealogists around the world like Elaine so that I can learn about how they got their education and how they started their business. It was really interesting to hear how she used the internet and Facebook to attract new clients. And the way she teamed up with Irish Roots magazine was a wonderful partnership. Before we head into our action item, I have a few pieces of news. Last year, I started 2 mastermind groups. I'm going to be doing that again this year. A mastermind is a 12-month group coaching session where I meet monthly with a group of genealogy professionals to discuss goals, strategize plans, and for the members to get support and encouragement for achieving business success. The groups are led by me and are limited to 10 people each. These groups are most ideal for genealogists who have already completed either the ProGen course or the BU certificate program. I'll be starting 2 new mastermind groups in March 2016. You can find information about signing up either on the genealogyprofessional.com website or on the Miriam Pierre-Louis Facebook page. The cost is $99 per person for the year. But sign up quickly because there are limited spots and I will not be adding extra groups. Also, I'm starting a Facebook group for the Genealogy Professional Podcast. It's free, and it's a place where you can talk about the action items from the show and ask questions. There's one hitch, though. In order to get into the group, you have to sign up for the mailing list on the genealogyprofessional.com website. So go to the website, sign up for the newsletter, and you'll receive an invitation via email to join the Facebook group. And now for your action item. Elaine talked about using Facebook as a form of marketing. While it may not be practical for you to partner with a magazine, you can still make the most of Facebook. First, what I want you to do is to do some market research. Search Facebook for groups that cover the topic of your niche. For instance, if you do French-Canadian genealogy, then search for French-Canadian groups. Second, I want you to join the groups and get involved. I'm not talking about stepping in and asking people for business. Instead, provide value. Answer questions, be helpful, and share your expertise. It will be the first steps in building relationships with your potential target market. Well, that's it for now. Until next time, so long. The Genealogy Professional Podcast is a production of Fieldstone Common Media, copyright 2016. Executive producer, Miriam Pierre-Louis. Creative producer, George Edwards. Production assistant, Pam Wolos. Technical director, Jean-Luc Pierre-Louis Jr.